Well, I've got a question for you. Anybody here or watching at home ever had the misfortune of being mugged? Had your house broken into, your car stolen, business robbed, or employee embezzled from you? Raise your hand if that's happened to you. Did you feel a sense of violation or anger? Frustration at the injustice of it all? Now, whether you raised your hand or not, I got some bad news, some worse news, and some good news. The bad news is every one of us are getting violated every single day. We are being robbed of our hard-earned money by people who are taking it and spending it like drunken sailors on shore leave. Taking it and wasting it without remorse. I'm talking about our government. They are here and they ain't here to help you. The worst news is we are all enablers. We are letting them get away with it, authorizing them to the point that it has become legalized corruption. They have passed legislation right under our noses that says they can do what they're doing. We just smile and nod or keep scrolling through our phones, watching cats dance or some other brain-numbing bullshit event. Their explanation is, well, just because. And you wouldn't understand. How dumb are we? So what's the good news? Well, we can stop it, and we can stop it now. We have stopped stupid before. Remember airlines in the 80s? They used to allow smoking in a pressurized tube for hours. You couldn't breathe. We said, hey, stop that, you're killing me, secondhand smoke. We stood up, it stopped. Enough was enough. Think about it, slavery, segregation, driving without a seatbelt, babies with no car seats. I could list more. We've stopped things before, but right now we're electing people who spend money. Money they don't have, our money. Money our children and grandchildren will have to pay. They just print more money whenever they panic. Sending money to foreign countries and never even planning to collect it. Or how is this for stupid? Paying out $3.6 billion in COVID stimulus checks to 2 million people who were dead. Come on, guys, if you're paying dead people, who are you turning down? And it's a double whammy. The same lawmakers are using your tax dollars, my tax dollars, to rob other Americans of their self-worth and self-esteem by creating a state of dependency. Hey, you're all oppressed victims. Keep voting for me and I'll keep giving you free money. It's time to say enough is enough and too much is too much. Tonight is both a wake-up call and a call to action, so hang on to your hat. The truth is coming up right now. One small business owner says that while her small Fort Worth bakery received some help during COVID, she feels she still needs more, but just can't get it.
In 2017, I finally got the doors open to my storefront bakery. I was so excited. The bakery had finally hit its stride. 8 employees and making up to $200,000 in sales. Then the pandemic hit. All the weddings, all the orders, all the events that we had, everything canceled and went away. We lost almost half of our business because customers were always upset that they could not come in. Over the last 3 years, we may have gotten over about $30K from the government. $30,000 is nothing over 3 years to keep a business going. Half of the money went towards payroll, the other half went towards our operating costs, rent, utilities. We would need at least $25K to begin to move forward back to our usual operation. We applied for several loans and grants and we kept getting denied. All the while I'm seeing the government spend millions on insignificant things. Small business owners are really struggling. I think the government should be held accountable.
Well, also joining us is Vinici. He was here just last week in the studio audience. He is a combat veteran and a small business owner. He heard we were working on this discussion, and here's what he had to say.
I'm a 3-time combat veteran, and me and my wife both own small businesses, and we can't get a loan anywhere.
Thank you guys for being here. This is an important subject to me, and I know it is to you. You said you received 32,000 during COVID, right?
Yes, that was during a span of years, though, not just like a one time.
Okay.
Mhm.
But you say you could now use at least 25,000 more to sustain your business?
Yes.
Okay. Why should the government give you money?
Well, I feel like small business is the backbone of this economy. We're able to hire people that can't get jobs. And it's just been a really critical time for small businesses. We're still reeling from the effects of the pandemic, even though the rest of the world has moved on. With inflation, with the cost of goods being high, I mean, this is our dream on the line. We have worked hard to get to where we are. And so I just feel like in order for the country to move forward, they should support the small guys. That's going to help us move forward.
But it's been 4 years. If they give you more money, how is that going to change your ability to make it as a small business? At some point, you got to stand on your own 2 feet, right?
Right. And so small business, we've been pivoting and pivoting, scaling back during inflation, figuring out how to move forward.
That's business.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
a dog-eat-dog world out there. You have a product that moves and goes or you don't, and the government can't bail you out time and again.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You say you need another 25,000 or maybe 50,000.
Right. Because we lost a lot of our business. So I'm a bakery, we do weddings and we do major events. Well, when all of those major events went away, we lost so much of our annual sales that we normally would get. So we literally have just been trying to recover and keep pivoting to stay afloat. And we have done that time and time again. But I know 2023 was the worst year, even harder than 2020.
Well, Benicia, you're a 3 combat tour veteran, right? And you're a small business owner.
Yes, sir. I have a landscaping business and a bounce house business.
I've got 4 grandkids, so we've
Oh, yeah.
bounced a lot.
You can rent from me any day of the year.
Yeah, we've bounced them till their brains weren't working. You didn't receive any COVID
No, sir.
support at all.
No, sir.
How does it make you feel that Tareka did?
I feel I'm on the other side of the coin about that. Since I didn't get any type of loans or any type of assistance or grants, we got denied for everything. They never actually gave us a definite reason out of all the grants and loans that we applied for. So I'm a firm believer that tough times don't last, tough people do. So we got out there and we made it happen.
Now, maybe they didn't give you more money because they were busy spending it on other things. I've looked at some of the stuff they were spending money on. They spent $2.7 million studying cats running on treadmills. They spent $1.7 billion on hot dogs walking in the heat. They spent $12 million on how monkeys sleep while they're on meth. They spent another $1.8 million on monkeys gambling. That's a lot of monkeys, I guess.
Yeah.
They spent $12 million on monkeys on meth, but there's a fentanyl crisis right down the street from here.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that makes sense.
Oh, it doesn't. See, that's where you waste time trying to make sense out of nonsense, but they don't have money to spend on somebody out there working their tail off trying to get a business up and going.
Well, first, I'm wondering if I need to switch my business to the circus.
Yeah.
I might be able to get a little more help.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'm thinking that they're not really considering the real needs of the American people.
There's so much wrong with the reasoning. If this was a private business, the government would have been out of business a long time ago. I mean, they're $35 trillion in the hole, but of course they've got a printing press. So you can fix a lot of things that way. With a deficit of $34 trillion and rising, take a look. This is a real-time clock of our debt rising by the second. Now, this is a big number, but look at it rising by the second as we're sitting here. This is how much that deficit is going up while we're sitting here. We're spending money we don't have at this rate. This is a debt clock, and it's going to be running while we're here. And we'll take a look at how much it changes during this hour. Next, a woman who says small businesses should never get government funding, ever. Plus, a man who says one form of government spending is legalized bribery. We'll meet them after the break. There were times in my life that I needed a coat, but the store didn't really care, so I left without a coat.
Right.
Because I couldn't pay for it.
You're describing living within your means. That does not apply to the government at all.
What's your point? Is there's power math? With the holidays around the corner, I've found the perfect gift to make your loved ones feel special: Cozy Earth. I'm wrapping my family in the ultimate comfort and sharing why you should too. A silent night starts with the right sheets. Cozy Earth bamboo sheet set turns everyday luxury into unparalleled comfort, making every night a serene escape. For holiday pajamas, Cozy Earth's women's bamboo pajama set and men's pajamas are stylish, super comfortable, and ideal for festive mornings or lazy evenings. So soft, they feel like wrapping yourself in a cloud. What sets Cozy Earth apart? Their temperature-regulating fabrics and 10-year warranty ensure these gifts last for many holidays to come. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Head to cozyearth.com/Phil. Use my code Phil for up to 40% off. That's right, up to 40% off. How amazing is that? Just go to cozyearth.com/Phil. And don't forget, if you get a post-purchase survey, say you heard about Cozy Earth from Dr. Phil podcast. Well, joining us now is Dr. Monica Crowley, former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Public Affairs under the Trump administration and host of the Monica Crowley podcast. She says we should never support small businesses. It's not the responsibility of the government. So thank you for being here and joining this conversation.
It's great to be here, Dr. Phil.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that government should never help small businesses?
Well, let me just clarify. I don't think, I would not say never help small businesses. Obviously, I was in the Trump administration during COVID, and we had a very short runway to stand up massive programs to help people who are running small businesses to keep their payrolls intact and to keep their employees attached to their health insurance. That was another critical part of it. So whenever there is an economic emergency of some kind in this country, obviously the government should step in and get the American people through the most acute periods of the crisis. The problem here is that while we did do very high levels of emergency spending during the actual emergency, the emergency level spending continues on absent the actual emergency. And that creates this $35 trillion deficit. And actually now we're running $2 trillion annual deficit. So we've got a national debt of $35 trillion, which is climbing every second of every day. But now we're running annual deficits of $2 trillion. You cannot keep up emergency level spending without the emergency. When the American people are in dire need of help because of some big external event that is out of our control, of course, the government should step in. The problem here is that so many temporary programs end up being permanent programs that you can never end, and that creates tremendous government dependency. That drives up the debt, drives up what we owe, and creates this kind of inflationary environment.
Yeah, but this is a false economy. I don't understand. There's what you want, there's what you need, and then there's what you can afford. And those are three different kinds of math, right? There were times in my life that I needed a coat, but the store didn't really care that I needed a coat. They were interested in what I could afford to pay for. So I left without a coat.
Right.
Because I couldn't pay for a coat. And the government sets up this false economy that says, well, if we don't have the money, we'll just print some.
So you're describing living within your means, which I think everybody in the audience has to. You're forced to live within your means. Businesses of all sizes, small businesses, big corporations, whether they're public or private, are driven by a profit motive. So it forces you to rein in your spending, to live within your means, whether as an individual or a business, right? To try to maximize your profits and deliver for the marketplace a good or a service that is needed. The government is not driven by a profit motive. The government is driven by a power motive, and power requires money. So the same incentives that guide each of us and our families to live within our means and not go overboard, or then you're going to get into a critical level of debt, that does not apply to the government at all.
What's your point? There's power math?
There is absolutely power math. So you've got the fiscal side, which is what Congress spends, and then you've got the monetary side, which is what the Fed prints.
But I've got grandchildren, and somebody's going to have to pay for this at some point.
That's
this is
right.
going to hit a wall.
That's right.
This is a false economy. I don't care who you are or how you cut this up. At some point, somebody has to step up and pay for this. Because every time they crank up that printing press, every dollar you have, every dollar you have, every dollar I have becomes worth less money.
That's right. They are devaluing the currency by pushing so much money down into the system. So just over the last 3 years, between the fiscal side, that's Congress and what they're spending and the administration, and the Fed, what they're printing, they have pushed $8 trillion down into the system. That devalues your currency, so your dollar goes less far. And this is why you're paying $30 for a dozen of eggs right now, or you can't go to McDonald's for less than $20, because they have created this inflationary spiral by pushing so much money down into the system.
While 37 million Americans live in poverty and 12 million children live in food insecure homes, Congress is giving trillions of our dollars away for frivolous, sometimes self-serving pet projects. Government watchdog Adam Mangiewski, CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, says some government spending is just straight up corruption at our expense.
Some of the biggest halo examples of government waste come out of this concept of earmarking. Earmarks are a small portion of the overall federal budget, but they're a favor factory where members request special projects back in their district so they can bring home the bacon. Each member of Congress gets to choose 15 local projects for their earmarks. Now, they have to be vetted in the House through the Appropriations Committee. Over the course of the last 2 years, Republicans and Democrats have earmarked 16,000 of these pet projects to the tune of $32 billion. Here's some examples of your federal tax dollars at work. It's $1 million from NASA to prepare the nation's religions for the discovery of extraterrestrial life. Health and Human Services made a $1.4 million grant for sex education for California prostitutes who could probably teach the class. And then you've got $1 million that went to Cornell University, an Ivy League school with a massive endowment, and they don't need taxpayer help. And the $1 million went for a study, where it hurts the most to be stung by a bee. And it turns out it's the nostril.
All right, well, this is Adam Mangiewski, and we're going to talk to you when we come back.
It's how they bring home the pork. And we call this the currency of corruption in Congress because it is legalized bribery.
I believe a lot of politicians are skimming off the top.
I think politicians are shady. They're getting paid too much.
I do think there's a little bit of corruption that might be involved where if you're supposed to have a basic salary, but at the same time you're making millions of dollars, or, I mean, you're just living a high life, we got to definitely check that out.
I think there's a lot of corruption that probably happens, and that's why they're worth as much as they are.
You've got people in the office who were bartenders a couple of years ago and now are worth millions. You see insider trading or allegations of insider trading. I think all that needs to be looked into.
I think somebody better be policing our government. What do you think?
We got a debt clock running. Every American right now is in the hole $102,752. That's how much we're all going to have to pony up to get even at this point. Adam says all these earmarks are non-essential spending. So tell people what earmarks are and how they work.
Actually, the definition of an earmark is a member of Congress requests a project back in their district. It's how they bring home the pork. And we call this the currency of corruption in Congress because it is legalized bribery. Leadership hands out these pet projects to put votes on these massive spending bills. And Dr. Phil, make no mistake, every one of these earmarks didn't pass muster on the regular budget process. So this is an irregular process on no-bid projects to bring home that bacon.
Okay, so these are things that maybe were floated before, didn't cut it, couldn't get approved. People said, I'm not doing that. So it didn't get voted on. So they come back around the back door and say, okay, yeah, we'll give you this through the back door so you can take it back to your district, to all the people you want to vote for you and say, here's this pet project, like a building with my name on it, or I'll give $4 million to this hospital where my wife is in charge of fundraising, or whatever back in the district. Give people what they think they want for free.
Exactly. Both parties have gone hog wild for this earmark spending. So you had a retiring U.S. senator earmarks $30 million of our money into the Honors College. He retires from the Senate. A couple of months later, they rename the Honors College after him.
Yeah, one earmark, they put aside money to build a new library to replace a library that got closed down because it wasn't getting used.
Right.
And if I could add, Congress just passed a $500 billion spending bill. In it was $15 million of our money to go put ankle monitors on cows to try to track cows. I mean, a cow is 1,000 pounds. You can't really lose a cow, but we are paying $15 million for that. We're also paying $1 million for a solar-powered jail in the South Pacific, not even in the United States.
Yeah. You've been on 3 tours as a veteran, and you look for some kind of assistance, not even a gift, just something that you're willing to pay back to help you. You can't get even attention to this, but yet this kind of money is flowing. What do you say to yourself about that?
The $8 billion that is unaccounted for, correct? Why isn't that allocated to the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide program to help them?
Yes, absolutely.
Hold on. I fought for this country, but who fights for us?
You've been on 3 tours as a veteran, and you look for some kind of assistance, not even a gift, just something that you're willing to pay back to help you. You can't get even attention to this, but yet this kind of money is flowing. What do you say to yourself about that?
I'm glad that you asked me that, Dr. Phil, because I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
So you said that we shouldn't be granted any money because we're small businesses and we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet, correct?
Well, that is the overall philosophy, absent an emergency, yes.
Right. So
and there are federal programs through the Small Business Administration for loans and things like that.
So let me ask you this. The $8 billion that is unaccounted for, correct? Why isn't that allocated to the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide program to help them?
Yes, absolutely.
Hold on.
I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
I just want to know, because you are a representative for working for the Treasury. I fought for this country, but who fights for us?
Yeah.
Where are those funds going to?
Yes, absolutely. I'm with you.
There's so many crashes in America, and it's all going to not small businesses, but anywhere else that nobody can account for.
I'm totally with you on that. My father was U.S. Army. I was born on an Army base, so I'm an Army brat. I am 100% behind military veterans, and I'm no longer at the Treasury. I was here for 2 years during the Trump years. When I talked about the power motive versus a profit motive, government is driven by power. Power requires money. All of these people on both sides of the aisle have their priorities because they need to get reelected. This is not about keeping your costs in check and running a streamlined business. This is about getting reelected. So they're voting their way back into power by spending money on stuff that we don't need, that nobody really wants, bridges to nowhere, and cows with ankle monitors, while our military veterans, which should be at the top of the priority, are not getting the support that they need. This is how messed up the government is and how absurd all of the spending priorities are.
Well, some of it makes no sense. $2.1 million on sex education for commercial sex workers in Ethiopia. $556,534 for a study of feces from various mammals. $9.4 million for Kyrgyz Republic for anti-corruption. We could use that here. IRS sent $3.6 billion in stimulus checks to 2.2 million dead people I mentioned at the top. Fauci's NIAID sent $478,188 to turn monkeys transgender.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. National Science Foundation gave $300,000 to the University of Wisconsin for a virtual reality penguin study. Harvard spent $75,000 in federal grants to blow lizards off trees with leaf blowers. You can't make this up. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's a cow spotted from outer space. I'm not joking. We paid for that. As we go to break, we look to the streets to find out what real life folks think about things like earmarks. And well, if they even knew what they were in the first place.
Am I aware what government earmarks are? No.
I've heard the word earmark, but I don't know what that means. I'm not familiar with earmarks.
Pet projects and earmarks are not where the money should go. I think that we should definitely prioritize the educational system rather than personal benefits.
It depends on what the earmarks are. There are some earmarks that are important.
To definitively say that earmarks are a negative thing, I can't really say that because it could be positive if it was handled differently, right? So if it was public knowledge of what it was being earmarked for and it was something we had a say in, then I think that could be a good thing.
I think it's government waste and pork.
Worked for 25 years, combination military and Department of Justice. I've been affected by the government shutdown on 3 separate occasions. From my experience, there were numerous things that cost more because we had to buy from specific vendors that were approved by the government. We couldn't just find the cheapest price, Amazon or some private company. The second thing was we had budgets that were allocated, and if we didn't spend the budget for one particular year, then the next year we weren't guaranteed to receive the same amount of money. So a lot of times we just spent money so we could ensure that we had it the next year, whether we needed the product or not.
Well, that was Calvin, a former government employee of 25 years who we just saw talking about surviving 3 government shutdowns. And Ginger, the wife of an employed Coast Guard official, had to turn to a local food bank during the last government shutdown. Thank both of you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
This. Well, you worked 25 years, right?
Correct.
So you've been through this.
Yes.
And your options are, show up and maybe get paid at the end of the shutdown, or don't show up. What did you do? How did you handle it?
Okay, now something I want to bring up as well is my wife was also a government employee. So when the shutdown happened, both incomes ceased. Luckily, the first one in 2013 lasted, I believe it was 17 days. So it took more of a stressful impact on the family. We just tried to tighten our belt and cut where we could. Of course, the second one was in 2018. It lasted 3 days. After the 17-day one, that one was really nothing other than we did the same thing. We just tried to adjust our budget. The 35-day one was the one that really took the impact on the family, and that was because, unfortunately, the wife had got a promotion, and she was now considered non-essential. So for 35 days, she didn't even have the option to go to work. She just sat at home. And didn't know whether she'd get paid. Now, in all 3 of them, I went to work. I thought I wasn't going to roll the dice that I might not get a check. I had the opportunity to work. The 35-day one, we had to take measures getting with creditors, trying to allow us to pay our bills late. Didn't want to affect our credit scores. To be a government employee, especially in the Department of Justice, you have to maintain your credit, and if you don't, then you can be terminated. So it was really just a lot of stress. And I had 2 school-age children, and you just really ate out less. You didn't go to the movies. You didn't rent a movie. It was tough.
Yeah. You went through the 3rd one, right?
Yes.
And your husband was Coast Guard.
Active duty Coast Guard, yeah.
But you're not getting paid.
Correct.
How do we pay these people to go run the government, and they're running so over budget, it's ridiculous, but they can't keep the government even running, and then they don't pay the people that are actually doing the work that they're not doing? That's astounding to me. So you had to go to the food bank to keep food on the table.
Yeah, we were a brand new military family, so new terrain, didn't know how to navigate that. Had just moved to our first duty station in Honolulu, Hawaii, so not a cheap place to live. And yeah, we went without 2 paychecks. I think the hardest part is not knowing how long it's gonna last. If you know, all right, let's ride this out for 7 days, we can make this work. We didn't know how long do we have to make this work. And at the time, there was no legislation guaranteeing that we would see that back pay. So yes, calling creditors, trying to figure out how do we weather this storm.
Yeah, and you say working for the department that you did, Department of Justice?
Correct.
Okay, so you can get fired if your credit goes bad, but your credit could go bad because they shut down and didn't pay you.
Yes. Now, luckily, my wife, she prepares. You know, we have 4 bottles of ranch and we have 2 cases of paper towels, and she's always been like that. So she also had a little nest egg savings that we depleted right around the time when we thought it was, you know, we're done. And then they finally passed the budget. So we did get reimbursed for it, but.
Yeah. So you chose to go to work. And so at the end, you did get paid. And then others who chose not to go to work, in the final analysis, they got paid too.
That is correct. You know, if they were on a cruise in Mexico, they got paid.
Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's our government at work. That's our tax dollars at work. While some of our guests say we should spend on social programs, others say, no way. We'll continue the conversation after the break.
What is a better use of our tax dollars? I think more of it should go towards social programs like food stamps and housing first.
Our taxes should be going to the education system and the safety of children. I mean, the school shootings are heartbreaking to me.
I believe it's a social responsibility to pay taxes, but I don't think we spend as much money on social programs, promoting the arts and things like that as I would like to see.
How our tax dollars are being used. So as a sociologist, I would think that we should all have an opinion. We have some very conservative people that are very involved and liberal people that are very involved, but we all need to work together harder.
Well, tonight we're talking about the $1.3 million spent on shrimp running on treadmills and the $120 million spent on interior designers for federal agencies. We're talking about government spending. Adam, how has this gotten so out of control?
Well, I think that there's just a lack of accountability. I mean, government is not only wasting our taxpayer money, they're literally milking us like dairy cows. So you have the top 20 largest federal agencies, and this is actually pretty stunning. Every year they have to report to Congress on their mistakes, their mistaken and improper payments. And it's been averaging about $250 billion per year. In fact, over the course of the last 4 years, the admitted mistakes of the 20 largest federal agencies is going to add up to $1 trillion. Your neighborhood grocery store has better accounting controls than the largest federal programs.
This is really upsetting to me, and I would think it would be to anybody. You know, Dr. Linda, you're a doctor of sociology. Do you think we deserve to know where our government spending is going and what it's doing?
Yeah, I think we should know. And I commend you for this program because it is informative, not just entertaining. It is, we're all learning from everyone here and with you facilitating that. And I think that's where it starts, is with the people, start learning what's going on. We have to know what all this is happening, not just watching the news every night, but to get involved on the local level, get involved with how we're voting and who's running, and then how they're spending our money.
Andrea, you think government should be smaller. What do you mean?
100% it should be smaller. I think right now, every year we add more and more government officials. I mean, just in the last few years, we've added tens of thousands of IRS agents, and 65% of the inquiries that they put out were for people that made under $200,000. So we're paying the government to attack its own people, and I don't agree with that. I think the smaller the government is, the more the economy can grow. It's just common sense. The more money that we have to pay in taxes, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm an investor. And the less money that I have in my pocket, the less money that I can invest in new business, the less money that I can put into VC funds. And so if we continue this, we're just discouraging people that want to actually invest, and we're giving props to people that are spendthrifts, and I don't agree with that at all.
I completely agree with that. I think that we should take those funds that they're spending on monkeys on meth, invest that in a program to where they actually audit congressmen. You audit Congress, you'll make the government smaller, because a lot of them are going to be held accountable for what they're spending. Political drug dealers.
Can you imagine if that happened, if Congress was audited and all of the waste, all the things that were just simply squandered and not accounted for was reimbursed to all the taxpayers? What a difference that would make to families that are on the bubble, on the cusp right now.
Absolutely.
What a difference that would make.
We wouldn't have government shutdowns.
No, yeah, for sure. All right, we'll be right back. Benisi says we should stop spending money to put monkeys on meth. But then we're going to have to spend money to put all those monkeys in rehab. All night long, we've been watching the debt clock count up. Thanks to Peter G. Peterson Foundation, now we know that since we started this conversation, our national debt has increased over $100 million. While we've been having this conversation, over $100 million. That's just the debt. Everybody understands this is eventually going to hit a wall, right? At some point. The United States credit rating has been downgraded, right? From AAA to AA+, which means funds cost more. This affects everything. Even the world is saying, it doesn't look like such a good gamble over there. This could go bad. That's not good for us on the world stage. It keeps showing us shutting down, going deeper and deeper in debt. And I need to stop talking or we're going to hit 125 million here pretty soon. And I said in the beginning that we have the ability to do something about this. I gave examples of things where we've just drawn the line and said, we're not going to put up with this anymore. Think about it. We didn't have seatbelts in cars. We did allow advertising of hard liquor on television. We did have people smoking on airlines. We did have all kinds of things. And finally, we just said, we're not going to have this anymore. We have the ability, and we are in a presidential election year, to message to our representatives locally, statewide, nationally, representatives, senators, that, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore. You either get this under control, you either stop this deficit spending, or we're going to fire your butt and get somebody in there who will. It's just that simple. We do have the ability to do this. You can get up from watching this program at home or in this studio and call your representative, call your senator. You can write to them and say, I'm fed up with this. I don't want to hear any more about your earmarks. I don't want to hear any more about this deficit. I better hear you going in and saying, we're stopping this no more. And if I don't, I'm going to organize everybody in my neighborhood, everybody at my church, everybody I can find, and we're coming after you and finding somebody that will go in there and be financially responsible. We're not going to go down so you can keep doing what you've always done. Enough is enough and too much is too much. And unless and until we do that, it's going to continue getting worse and worse and worse. As you point out, $2 trillion a year is what we're going in the hole right now. And that's going to be $2 trillion in 23, it was, $2 trillion in 24, $2 trillion in 25. It's just going to keep going. And if you don't think that we can't go broke, just call some friends in Venezuela and see what happened. It can happen, and we can't be silent. We've got to do something about it. This is not political. If you look at what was spent during the Republican administrations and what was spent in the Democratic administrations, it doesn't make any difference. They all do the same, and we can't sit idly by and allow it to keep going. I'm just saying.